Chinese culture is ancient, more than 5,000 years old. 活到老，学到老. And one human life, I guess, is not enough to understand the whole Chinese culture in its complexity. The narrow Beijing alleys, the so-called hutongs, are the place where the ancient city spirit is being preserved and thrives. Of course, with the passing of time, the role of hutongs is changing rapidly. They're being renovated and they're becoming the new backbone of city's economy. My name is Konstantin Shepin and I've been living and working in Beijing for almost 20 years. As I came to Beijing, I kind of immediately fell in love with this country, with this city, so I decided to stay for quite a long time, which brings me to staying over Beijing for almost 20 years by now. I came here as a correspondent for a TASS news agency, and I'm still a reporter right now, and I honestly love my job.
Наверное, надо начать с того, что фондовую биржу сразу окрестили.
Through my walk of life, I worked for a lot of foreign media in China, then came to work for China Media Group, the biggest media corporation in China, which is my job right now. We went to Mianzhu first, and then we went to Dujianye because Mianzhu was badly destroyed and there was no need for any rescue job. So we changed the route, we went to Dujianye, and finally the Russian rescue team became the only foreign rescue team who managed to find a survivor. After half a year after the earthquake, when I went over Dujianye again, and I was passing by one of the buildings, exactly the one I used to climb to make my reports and to catch the phone signal. And what I see on that side is just a pile of rubble. So I asked the locals what happened, and they say there was another aftershock and the building finally collapsed. So then I understand, oh my God, I could be there. Probably, I skipped half an hour or maybe an hour, and that's why I survived. I was happy to see how the devastated areas of Sichuan province are being restored after the earthquake. They demonstrated what we journalists call the Chinese spirit. Basically, from the very first year I came to China, which was 2004, I've been covering the two sessions for foreign media. So the level of openness to the foreigners keeps on growing, honestly. Throughout my work for party congresses, for two sessions, first of all, what I've seen is the growing attention from the foreign audience to what's going on in China, and the growing attention from the foreign media to what's going on in China. Like between 2004, when there was only a few foreign reporters, and now when the great hall of people is just bristling with foreign correspondents who has to queue for every single document. Just this fact shows the growth of interest in China within the foreign media and foreign audience. We have to admit that there is still the ongoing deficit of information about China abroad in many countries. So our utmost job as a reporters back here in China is to fulfill that deficit. Now, speaking about how to tell the Chinese story well, I can speak about that forever. Just a couple of weeks ago, I made a huge half an hour lecture to my Chinese colleagues about sharing my experience about how to tell China's story well to the foreign audience. So reporting about China, we see that difference between different countries about their expectations of audience. So to be heard within your target audience, you should always consider its habits and expectations. 火神山and 雷神山, two hospitals. And it was very interesting to monitor what was going on over there because they were basically constructed in no time. And that's basically when the term of Chinese speed was born. Wuhan reacted to the spread of COVID-19 basically in no time. The whole process was broadcasted live through special channels, and basically everybody in the world from any country could examine the process of constructing those hospitals. Moreover, it was not just one-way communication, it was a two-way communication. A lot of, for example, engineers from abroad, they were watching those broadcasts and sharing their ideas of how to improve the process. And this is, as I see it, a very new level of media communication when you don't just tell your story to your audience, but you actually communicate with them and listening to them and making it even more useful for yourself. As I already said several times, China is in its information policy, it prefers to thoroughly explain its own position based on facts. I think it's a very good and correct approach. If you do consider that, if you speak the same language to your target audience, you will be heard. And that's the biggest secret of our job, I guess. On the third day after the person is born, they celebrate it with the noodles to wish the person a longevity and everything. 然后 every birthday, people eat 长寿面 to wish all the best and long life and longevity to the person. As I came to China, I immediately fell in love with Chinese food. I visited almost every region in China. Every province, every place I go to, I firstly studied the local cuisine and before making that report. So through that, through years and years and years of work, collecting all this information about every local cuisine, I've got like tons of notes, tons of stories from locals, and finally I decided to put them into one huge book, which came to be really popular in Russia because Chinese cuisine culture is very thorough and very complicated. Almost every dish in China has its own story. So through learning Chinese cuisines, you learn stories about China. So in my book, through Chinese cuisine, I tried to also tell the audience about Chinese history, about Chinese modern society, even about Chinese economics. Chinese culture is ancient, more than 5,000 years old. So, and we know the Chinese language has got thousands and thousands and thousands of characters, and behind every character there's its own philosophy. And one human life, I guess, is not enough to understand the whole Chinese culture in its complexity. It's a very, very huge honor, and I am honored, to understand that my work for almost 20 years over here is being appreciated. But honestly, I would like to thank all of my Chinese colleagues. Without them, there won't be such a huge progress in my professional career. I'm already settled down in Beijing, as I say. I almost live here for 20 years, which is almost half of my life. China is a huge country, a very quick developing country, so day in, day out, there's a lot to discover. So as they say in China, 活到老学到老, that's what I'm doing.